Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns with the week off, bye week. So they are getting ready to play the San Francisco 49ers a week from Sunday. But right now, kind of getting things straightened out in Berea as the coaches are meeting, trying to figure out tendencies and adjust things coming out of that bye week. Take a look at this. This is interesting. So first and 10 rates and success rates on those runs. First 10 rush rates, that's the x-axis going across. Up and down success rates on those runs in non-garbage time situations. So the Browns' rush rate on first and 10 between 50 and 55%. The success rate, though, between 35 and 40%. So the further out to the right you are, the more often you're running on first and 10. Up and down, you want to be high. They're below average. So average would be right across. They're below average with their success rate. So welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. And Quincy, that kind of gets back to they got to run the ball more effectively.
I mean, yeah, but it's a tall task, especially with them running all this wide zone that they had left in there for Nick Chubb. They're gonna have to switch some things up. They're gonna have to have some heart-to-heart conversations about what they can and cannot do with this offense anymore, given who's not there and who's not performing well. And they're going to have to make adjustments based off of that, because right now the plan ain't working, right? They're still trying to run this wide zone. They're still trying to, live like Nick Chubb's still there, but we're just don't got Nick Chubb. That world is not giving you the results that you wanted out of that. So they got to figure out something else, maybe some gun runs, maybe some RPOs, maybe some inside zone, switch it up like that. But as of right now, it just hasn't been impressive or encouraging what you're seeing from these wide zone runs.
Yeah, and that's what this week is about. The bye week comes early. That's good because you've got to change some things. Would you be surprised to see them spread it out and try to get some lighter boxes and open up run lanes that way?
Yeah, they got to figure out a way to make the teams care that they might run the ball. Right now, nobody cares that you're going to run the ball. And that's shocking to say with the Cleveland Browns, given how much teams have feared the Browns running the ball over the last few years. But yeah, nobody cares. So you got to find a way to get teams to care. And a lot of that is just simplifying the run game, making the keys easier to read, and making it just easier to attack when these teams cloud you or get into zone looks, and make these gaps easier to get. You just want to get a smooth 4 or 5 yards from your run game, right? If you can get a smooth 4.5 yards carry, like you could just rely on it, second down, let's run it. It's 2nd and 9. We get that run going. Now it's 3rd and 3. That would be great. That would be amazing if they could have that kind of a run game. Not the Nick Chubb, I'm going to break 30 tackles, get to the other 20 like that. That world's done. We don't have that world anymore. But just a world where you can just, like Baltimore was able to do, just a nice smooth run every once in a while. That would be great. And right now they're not close. And they need to find a way to get close to being consistent. Because the issue isn't that you don't have guys who can burst one every once in a while. The issue is that you don't have guys who are consistent getting that kind of production. Like nobody's consistent. Kareem, Jerome, maybe it's Pierre Strong. Somebody's got to find it consistently. And I'm not seeing it right now.
All right, we'll get back to the run game there in a minute. Do you think play calling is an issue? It seems like every time the offense struggles, we hear about play calling. Do you think that's an issue?
I don't think the play calling element of it is overblown to me, right? Because my issues aren't with the play calls when they happen. It's hard to judge those things. You usually just judge those off of the result. If you caught the same plays and they worked and the Browns won this game, we'd be calling him an excellent play caller. The issue I have is what's on the play sheet, right? That's the problem. What's called on those plays, in the specific scenarios, I don't really care to parse that out. But, why is the play sheet like it is? Why isn't there more RPO in that play sheet? Why isn't there more inside zone in that play sheet? Why isn't there easier ways to like screens and stuff that you're adding in there, easier reads, easier half field stuff that you're doing for DTR. Why isn't that on the play sheet? Now I understand Deshaun was a last minute decision. It kind of caught people by surprise. So you're not going to be fully adjusted, but you could do small things like, hey, on this, we're going to change the progression from, deep middle to short, from short to middle, right? Don't even think about the deep. We're just going to try to take the cookies in front of you. I didn't see that, right? I saw DTR trying to make the same reads that Deshaun would make. And when Deshaun's making those reads, it's fine. He has the great arm strength and the great arm talent to do it. DTR, you saw what happened when he tries to be Deshaun. He's not. And that just, I don't love that. I don't love some of the lack of motion that I'm seeing pre-snap. Every team's doing it now. Most of the best offenses are running motion. Where's the Browns? We're not really doing motion. We're doing like some orbit screens. We have Nick Harris in the backfield. Like those are the wrinkles, and they feel like gimmicks. They don't feel like real solutions, real replicatable solutions for this offense. So, we can talk about the play calling all day. We can really talk about it all day because it's this hypothetical thing that we argue about. But the real issue is what's on the play sheet. Because that's a lot more serious if you don't love what's on the play sheet than if you just don't love what he called on that play sheet.
All right, so Andrew Berry was asked earlier this week how the run game might evolve from the bye week and moving forward.
We largely started off as a wide zone under center team. And as the run game has evolved, largely with the players that we had up front, and then obviously having an all-world back in Nick, our run game has been really diverse. We've done a lot more, gap scheme. Obviously, when we got Deshaun, we added a QB run element. So over the past 4 years, we really have a pretty broad menu to draw from. So probably the short answer to your question is, I think we're going to be able to be multiple, moving forward based on the opponent. How we look in the run game versus, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, that really had to change, when we played Tennessee, which was arguably one of the best run fronts, in the league. It was really, we tried to have more of a perimeter game perhaps without as much success, and then you pivot to the passing game. So for us, it's not necessarily about, okay, hey, we're only going to do this. We have to be variable enough that we can adapt to our opponent.
So game plan specific. Okay, I get that. What do you see them adding coming out of the bye? Clearly, as we've said, you don't have Nick Chubb. You cannot run the same game with the guys that you have who are not named Nick Chubb.
Here's the problem with the offense. Dave, if I had to ask you, what is this offense's bread and butter or what's their staple? Do you think you could come up with the answer to that question?
Not a clue. And it's what we said about the defense last year. What's its identity?
Mm-hmm. What do they go to when the chips? I've made this point before the season. Hey, what's the plan on 3rd and 5? Right? Because 3rd and 5 in the NFL, that's where you figure out what you feel like you're the best at, what you feel like you cannot be stopped at. You see Mike Tomlin teams, they will always run a rub concept or a pick play on 3rd down. No doubt in my mind, they will, whenever they need a 3rd down, I promise you it's going to be a pick play or they're going to try to fullback dive. That's what they're going to do. That's their bread and butter. They love those kind of concepts, designs on defense because they know they see a lot of man. The Browns, for a while, the staple was play action, boot. We're going to throw this ball deep to the tight ends, deep, middle, high, all that stuff. And then Nick Chubb run. That used to be the staple, but the game's changed. You can't live off that anymore. Too many teams have ran it, right? Too many guys are familiar. So that can't be how you build your bread and butter. So what Kevin Stefanski and this offense needs to figure out is what's that new bread and butter? Is it going to be some RPO stuff? Is it going to be, it can't be inside zone. That's not going to be bread and butter worthy. But what's it going to be? What concepts do they feel like they can just dominate with right now? Because all I'm seeing is kind of basic stuff. Yeah, they run stick on 3rd and 5. Maybe they run a slant or something like that. But it's not anything to where I feel like they feel really good about. And this team has been bad in 3rd and mid situations. So that's what they need to figure out between the Stefanski and Deshaun Watson in this offense. Who's the go-to? Is it going to be Coop? Are we 3rd and 5? Who we drawing stuff up for? Is it Coop? Like, I don't know yet, right? Like, it's been between Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper. Who are we drawing up stuff for? Who's our guy? Who are we going to be like, hey, we're trying to get him open. We're going to focus on it. It don't like none of this feels like it's there right now, right? Like, there's the end around stuff, the Elijah Moore, and there's the cutesy screens here that we could do in the backdoor trick play stuff, but that's not an identity. That's just gimmicks. They need an identity. They need to figure out who they are. What do they rely on? Who are they going to lean on? Part of that is reps. Deshaun's really had 2 full games as a Cleveland Brown this year. I mean, the Cincinnati game counts, but it rained. Nobody could throw the ball. Whatever. You have 2 games of him throwing the football to really look at. So it's not a complete picture. So we just need to see it. What's the plan here? Where are they going? What's going to be the go-to for them on third down? What's going to be the go-to in the red zone? Who do they trust? Who do they not trust? Who do they trust in certain situations? Where's David Njoku fit into this, right? Where do the running backs fit into this picture? There's too many questions right now, and that's not great. And you want to have those questions answered. But right now we have questions about if the quarterback's who we think he is. We have questions about what's going on with the offense. We have questions about the offensive line. And it's not the greatest place to be in the world. So they have to figure these things out. They got to figure out what this identity is, what their plan is going forward, who's going to be in what spots, and what guys are they going to really lean on, right? Nick Chubb's not coming through those double doors, running through that tunnel anymore. Who are you leaning on now? What are you leaning on with what plays? We don't know that. We need to see it. So far, I haven't seen anything that even looks like an answer. So I want to see that coming after the bye. Need to see it after the bye.
Here's what some data indicates it should be. Take a look at this. Browns have the NFL's 6th best yards per play in run-pass option concepts in 2023. 3rd best yards per play when giving the ball off for a run on that run-pass option. And they're currently 24th in the NFL in RPO usage. That's from Jake Burns of the Orange and Brown Report. That gives you an idea of something that they can do what would appear to be at a high level. The question is, are they going to be willing to do that?
Hey, it's a big question, right? Like, they did the RPO stuff Deshaun Watson's first game back. And that game didn't go well. And we have not seen that volume of RPO stuff since, right? Like, it looked like a completely different offense that they ran when Deshaun first got back to what they have ran since then. I wonder, why is that? Is it Kevin's not comfortable with RPO? Is it that Deshaun's not comfortable with RPO? That doesn't seem like a very likely answer. Why is that? Why has that disappeared from this offense? And, you know, even in that stat, right, like, I think only 3 of those carries were from Nick Chubb. So, like, this is something replicable, right, that they can go to the RPO stuff. And I'm not just saying like a Oregon RPO where you just go and throw a slant down the middle of the field. Like, we're just talking about bubble alert. We're just talking about picking up and running, you know, just some regular RPO read option stuff. And they have not really instituted a lot of this, and then it makes me worried, because once you institute the RPO, you have some success. You also need to get creative with it. Do they have anybody who's familiar enough with this and in a position where they can get creative with it, right? Like Shane Steichen's doing right now for Anthony Richardson. These are questions to be answered. Again, when you're a 2-2 football team, you have some things you feel good about. You have some things that need answers. This is what being 2-2 is like in the NFL.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Danielle. Love your show. I was just thinking about Andrew Berry's comments. towards the fans that we just need to be patient. We've been patient for decades and decades, so I think that's a lame excuse. And I think that Stefanski should have had a better call plays for DTR, kind of throwing DTR under the bus and also throwing Watson under the bus. So I think we need to address those issues going forward as well, and also consider getting another running back, and then also Jed Wills. He's not really trying at all. What do you think about Jed Wills and possibly trading for Taylor since Chubb is hurt? Thanks. Love your show. Whoop, whoop. Go Brownies. Love you guys.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, they made it pretty clear that they're not going to trade for Jonathan Taylor. Andrew Berry addressed that. He basically said they view it as a rotation with Hunt and Jerome Ford, not Pierre Strong. They got to get better play out of their left tackle. If it's Jed Wills or if it's time to, they picked up his fifth-year option, so they're on the hook for that. He's not playing well. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, he's not playing well. He's not the only one on that offensive line. I think, people have been pointing this finger at Jed. And look, Jed's not good. And Jed's the one you could point at and make fun of and everybody's going to be okay with. But it ain't just Jed. Like, you can get rid of Jed, put somebody else there. Let's say you magically get a starting left tackle off your bench or your practice squad or whatever. You fix that. You still have issues. Wyatt Teller's not 2020 Wyatt Teller anymore. Joe Bitonio's not 2020 Joe Bitonio. And J.C. Treader and Ethan Posick look like there's a gap between those two players, right? Like, it's not just one thing. It really isn't just one thing on that offensive line. There are multiple things that are going wrong on every play. Sometimes it's the center. Sometimes it's the guard. Sometimes Jed's fine and it's the other guard. Sometimes Jed's not fine and it's both the tackles, right? Dewan's had some times where he's gotten blown by. Now, Dewan's been probably the best of everybody there, but that's not good that Dewan's been the best out of everybody. He's a rookie. He shouldn't be the best out of everybody, or at least the most consistent. So, I think, yeah, Jed, we could point and put him and make him the what do you call it? The scapegoat of all the problems on the offensive line. But they don't end with him, and they don't just start with him. There is more problems there than what people want to realize, and we're just throwing it all on Jed. And as far as like Kevin and the play calling, like should the play calling be taken away? I don't know. But I don't know if taking the play calling away from Kevin really changes the offense that much, right? Like it's still the same offense. If you don't like the offense, if they're not doing RPOs and Kevin's not calling RPOs, it's probably because it's not on the play sheet. And if it's not on the play sheet, it don't matter who got that sheet. It's not getting called. So these are problems that we can try to point one thing at and say, this is it. Nah, man, it's a team effort. It's a group effort. These things have to change. There have to be collective will to want these things to change. And part of this is going to have to be Kevin has to not put his tackles in that position. Part of this has to be the tackles have to play just a little bit better, right? Like, there is a cohesion thing that needs to happen. This is not Madden. You can't just take the problem out of your depth chart and plug somebody else in. You have to work with what you have and be malleable. And this is what the bye week is for, to figure out what do you have and what can we adjust to. Okay, Jed gets beat inside far too often. We just have to adjust for that, right? Like, we got to adjust for that. We got to give him something help inside. Maybe we just roll away from him on certain plays. We got to give him help from that, right? You can't run the ball. Why can't you run the ball? Is it the wide zone? Maybe you need to do something a little bit more simple. Got to adjust for that, right? I'm not just going to throw problems at you with no solution. You have issues with the interior, figure out what's going on in the protections. They're not talking well enough. They're not communicating. Figure out the problem. Find a solution that can work, right? A football season is about whatever you can do with duct tape to get that thing tight as possible to finish the year. And this is part of the process. There's going to be problems. Every team has problems. The Chiefs had these problems last year. Oh, my God, what are they going to do at wide receiver? They duct taped it together. They won the Super Bowl. Now, Deshaun's not Pat Mahomes, but you see what I'm talking. You see the vision.
So this is from Heavy.com. So it's trades that could happen. And they say if the Raiders decide they are out of contention, they could trade their left tackle, Colton Miller. Garrett Bowles of Denver is a realistic option for the Browns, though another possibility may exist in Colton Miller. First-round pick Miller playing on a 3-year, $54 million deal under contract through 2025. PFF ranks him as the 5th best tackle in the NFL through 4 games this season. I have no idea what Colton Miller would cost you. What's your thoughts of getting somebody that would be a pretty substantial upgrade?
Look, man, this don't start unless we can get somebody to take Jet in the trade, and I don't think you find anybody to take Jet in the trade. So I find it hard to think that they could trade for a left tackle. Like, what are they gonna? They already spend arguably too much money on the offensive line. Are we gonna put Jet in a position to where he's a highly played 6th tackle? Like, are we gonna throw more money at the problem when we don't have a ton of money? You know, and it's not just for this year, right? Where you can say, oh, we could just use that. No, Jet's contract is guaranteed into next year because of the 5th-year option. So there's not a quick fix. Like, Jet's got to play better, and Kevin has to figure out ways for Jet to be able to succeed in this offense or to succeed around Jet. That happens all the time. Look, teams have liabilities at left tackle. It happens. Teams have liabilities at certain positions. It happens all the time. Kansas City Chiefs are a great example of this. They have holes, bad players all the time on their rosters. But it's about your ability to be able to maneuver around that as a team by adjusting that makes the difference. There's no NFL team that doesn't have a weakness. No NFL team that doesn't. No NFL team that has a player that's starting that they wish wasn't starting, was playing better. No NFL team is perfect. And just because Jet ain't perfect don't mean you got to trade to try to get somebody better and throw even more money at it. At some point, you have to figure out what you're going to do with what you got. Because the well's closed. You ain't got the money to spend. You got to figure out how you're going to make this work with what you got. And if this is what you got with Jet, you got to make it work. You got to figure it out. You can't just sit there and hope he's going to get better. You got to figure out how to make it work with what you got.
All right. One thing that has gone well, without question, Myles Garrett is off to a really good start. Former NFL edge rusher Chris Long on what he sees that makes Garrett so special.
Myles Garrett is the guy. You know, last year Nick Bosa had the best year. He's DPOY. Mike is like the second coming of LT.
Right.
In a lot of ways, but Myles Garrett is Julius Peppers. I mean, he's like a more compact Pap. I've never seen a guy that big run on the side of his cleat as often as he does top of the rush. And he plays on grass. Okay. When I played with Robert Quinn, you know, he had 18.5 one year. He'd run sideways, you know, but he was 260 and we got the turf. Myles Garrett's 285. He's digging those spikes in. And he is at the top of the rush as good as anybody.
And again, Quincy, so what he's saying is he gets where he wants to go and then gets to the quarterback. That's when he talks about getting to the top of the rush.
Yeah, Myles is amazing. Like he's been so good so long that we take him for. Look, he didn't go viral for beating like 3 triple teams against the Baltimore Ravens. Like that doesn't even go viral with them anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, Myles beat a triple team. Seen it last week. So he's just spectacular. One of the best defensive players you'll ever see in your lifetime, especially at that position, and definitely one of the most talented players. He's one of a kind. You know, when he was drafted here, when he was the prospect, the hype about him coming out of Texas A&M was once in a generation type prospect. That was the hype. There were quarterbacks in that draft class. Deshaun Watson was in that draft class. Pat Mahomes was in that draft class. You know how good you got to be as a prospect to go number 1 in that class where there are viable quarterback candidates? Tells you what kind of prospect he was. He was once in a generation. He's lived up to that billing.
All right. Andrew Berry earlier this week talked about what he has seen from Jim Schwartz in that defense.
I think that his approach of aggressiveness, disruption, generating every play, and quite honestly, dictating to the offense, is awesome. It's refreshing, and it's a style of football that our guys really embrace, and probably just as importantly, have fun playing in. And I think the other thing about Jim is he he embraces personality, right? Like I think, we see that on a weekly basis because our defense may have no less than 100 choreographed celebrations. I don't even know where they come up with it. So I think that's really cool because that's something he wants guys to play with passion and be themselves. And I think that's something that really endears him to the guys, quite frankly.
Yeah, he's fun to play for. I mean, if the bottom line is the defensive players think Jim Schwartz is fun to play for, and he still holds them accountable.
They like going to work. They like going to work. When you like your job, you do it better. Like, but at the end of the day, when you like going to work, right? When you don't dread walking into the office every day, when you don't dread walking into the meeting room, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, football player or not, when you don't dread that and you enjoy it because the vibes are pretty good, and you actually excited, now you doing extra work. You're like, yeah, let me see what I could do to compete with him. And now you getting all excited. Look, it's fun to go to work. He knows how important that is, that it doesn't have to be this monotonous grind, because he's been through that grind more than anybody. He's been coaching in this league since the 80s, man. Like, he understands that, and he's like, hey, one of the things you need, especially with defensive players, they need to enjoy what they're doing. They need to enjoy coming to work, because when defenses specifically don't like coming to work, I mean, you can tell when a football team hates going to work, right? We've seen Browns teams that hated coming to work, right? And we've seen the efforts that we get from both sides of the ball when they hate coming to work. It's never pretty. You never see a team that hates coming. Like, say all you want about Bill Belichick, and people act like they're miserable playing with Bill. Those guys are never miserable. You know why, Dave? Because they always go back. Like, there must be something popping about what they're doing, especially on defense. And then every guy you hear gets interviewed that used to play for Bill Belichick, they never have these horror stories we be imagining that Bill be. No, they be like, Bill's funny. Bill's kind of cool. Bill's better than what y'all think. Because Bill understand they need to like coming to work at the end of the day. That's what it is. Also, you need to have a competent foundation to teach. You can't just be anybody making work fun and all that, but you need to be credible and have something competent to get these guys to do that will make it fun. But that's the philosophy there from Jim Schwartz, and you'll see a lot of defensive coordinators do it. Why do you think some of the best defensive coordinators are hopping up and down on the sidelines, giving dudes high fives, chest bumping? They're usually younger defensive coordinators now, right? Robert Saleh, who was somebody like that, D'Amico Ryans. There's a reason, right? Those guys tend to have better defenses because they understand that they need to make coming to work fun in order to get the most out of everybody. And, look at even on the offensive side, Mike McDaniel, he does a great job of doing that.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage, and I are going to take another time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, Browns Nation, longtime Browns fan. My problem is with the Browns front office. I mean, you did great with the special teams because you brought in a new coach, and he stopped all the penalties. You did great with the defense. He did great. He made our defense very respectful, but you stopped at the offense. Take the play calling and game planning from Stefanski and let the offensive coordinator handle his job. Stefanski's game plan doesn't work. Stefanski's play calling doesn't work. Stefanski is holding this offense back. He's very predictable. Thank you.
So I appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, it's kind of his offense that they're running. So you got the best season that Baker Mayfield's ever had. You got a pretty good season out of Jacoby Brissett. They have to figure out how to highlight what Deshaun Watson does well. He's done it with 2 quarterbacks. We need to see it with an elite one here.
And I don't want to dismiss the caller's point, but like if you hire like Eric Bieniemy to be Kevin Stefanski's offensive coordinator, then what is Kevin Stefanski actually doing for the team at that point? Like, he's just dead man walking, right? So there are probably reasons you probably don't go that way. And Kevin's in charge of who he hires on the staff. He's probably not going to put himself in that situation. But one of the things you could say, and this is hindsight being 2020 with Kevin, is, hey, at the end of the year, are we going to think to ourselves, maybe they should have brought in somebody who could challenge Kevin's thought process a little bit more, right? And that doesn't have to be another offensive coordinator. That might be a quarterback coach who has a drastically different style, right? Maybe you poach one of Kansas City's old quarterback coaches or Shane Steichen's quarterback coach, whatever you got to do, right? To kind of get a different voice from a different philosophy in there other than this Kubiak Shanahan style. So, I think part of the issue that Kevin's running up against is, his offenses have been fine. He's really learned and mastered that Shanahan style, but that's really the style that he knows and he's only known as an offensive mind in the NFL. There's a question of like, okay, now if you have to adjust it, now that the league's caught up to it, what can you do to adjust and be malleable? And do you have the voices in the room right now offensively, enough diverse thought in there from different styles, philosophies, and offenses in that coaching room, especially on the offensive side, to be able to make these adjustments and make them effective? That's something that I would like to see. I don't think it means you bring in a new offensive coordinator or anything, but maybe you could look at it and say, hey, maybe the quarterback coach, they could have had a more ambitious hire for that, or somebody from a different tree and style, so that they could bring in and challenge some of this stuff that Kevin wants to put in. That could be a thought.
All right, so take a look at this. Found this really interesting. This is the wide receiver separation chart from Next Gen Stats. It's actually through week 3, but you get the idea here. So that separation is across, the x-axis, if you will. So that's from right to left. Elijah Moore, he has a boatload of separation, most in the NFL. But the up and down, those are receiving yards. So they're not maximizing the separation that he is getting. That would be a problem. That needs to get corrected quickly.
Yeah, they need to involve him as a wide receiver. I don't need to see him take 12 carries in a game. I don't need to see him or only see 8 when he's doing an end around. We've tried that stuff. I'll commend him for trying it, right? Like, hey, you want to do something different? You want to see if that Debo stuff will work for you? Cool, try it. I'll never fault an offensive coordinator for trying new stuff. That's what I want Kevin to do, right? Like, I can't be critical of him and be critical of him for trying new stuff. But now that it doesn't work, okay, we got to use Elijah Moore different, right? It's, again, you know what you have now. You have to figure out how to get the most of what you have, right? It's not going to be about going out trading for another wide receiver. You got to spend the money you already spent. Like, you got to just stay in that budget.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about Grant Delpit, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. So, Pro Football Focus showing us the highest graded safeties so far in 2023. Jesse Bates, big-time free agent, signing for the Falcons, number 1, 92.0 is the grade. Holland is second, Cisco is third, and Grant Delpit of the Browns, fourth highest graded safety, 85.1, ahead of former Brown Jabril Peppers. But Quincy, you know, yeah, go figure. He's not even playing 25 yards off the line of scrimmage. But the question is, do you think the Browns can keep Grant Delpit? You know, I mean, he's going to be a free agent. Is there a way they can keep him, do you think?
A franchise tag's always in play when it comes to a dude like Grant. Maybe you get an extension out of him. It depends on how he finishes the year. If he plays at this level, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough to keep Grant Delpit around, especially long term. And it also matters what the result of the season is, Dave. If this team wins a bunch of games, they're going to try everything to get Grant Delpit back, to run it back, especially if they don't win a championship. But let's say this team has an underperforming season, and we all know what that looks like, then maybe the rush isn't there to bring back Grant Delpit, right? Because maybe the overall philosophy in the building might change just a little bit. So, you know, that's what it kind of depends on. How many games do they win? How important is Grant Delpit to that? And what is the math there at the end of the season? That's really going to matter with Grant. But I mean, I would love to have him for a long time.
So, do you think the Browns still have those same high expectations, and should they? I know you've addressed this on Untitled Unfiltered. Do they still have high expectations? Should they have those high expectations?
Yeah, with Nick Chubb going down, right, there's a question of like, hey, do the expectations change? And I think as every week goes on, especially since that injury, we've started to see the gravity of not having Nick Chubb, what he takes away. And for the running backs don't matter crowd, I always was baffled by how people throw like Nick Chubb into this conversation, right? Maybe a decent running back, a Jonathan Taylor, maybe it's not like that for him. But for Nick Chubb, him not being there takes away a lot of the gravity that you naturally get. It takes away a lot of the effectiveness of play action. It takes away a lot of what this offense predicates off of, and you can see it. The wide zone was a staple for this team when Nick Chubb was here. It was an absolute reliable staple. It is a liability now because Nick Chubb's not there. It wasn't a liability in week 1 when Nick Chubb was running. It wasn't a liability in week 2 when Nick Chubb was running. So the question is, can this team reach the same expectations without Nick Chubb? I think the answer is yes, but it really depends on what version of Deshaun Watson you get. If Deshaun Watson is somebody who could be a game changer, if Deshaun Watson is somebody who could be, you know, in the MVP conversation, in the top quarterback conversation, then you ain't got nothing to worry about because the offense is going to be Deshaun Watson City anyways, and that's what it was always going to be, and he's going to lead us to where we need to go. But now Deshaun doesn't have those safety wheels. Now Deshaun doesn't have that safety blanket to where, hey, if I'm struggling or I can't throw the ball, I can just give it to Nick Chubb. Maybe he can win this game. The whole team doesn't have that safety blanket. You saw it this week with DTR, right? Usually when the Browns have a backup quarterback in there, it doesn't go like that. We were kind of shocked because it went like that. It doesn't go like that. Why? Because we've always been able to hand the ball off to 24. Push come to shove. Okay, DTR is going to go out there. We'll just hand it off to 24 30 times. And that might be a good game plan. So the turnovers are up. Why? Because we can't hand the ball to 24 no more. Right? Like that's part of the problem. We can't hand the ball to 24 no more. So they're going to have to figure out how they fill that hole. And the only guy who's capable of filling that hole is the quarterback, is Deshaun Watson. The good news is he's paid to fill that hole. The bad news is we still waiting and seeing if he's going to be that guy. There's no answer on that yet.
Security blanket is 24 is also Kevin Stefanski's security blanket. He's going to have to move a little bit outside of his comfort zone.
He's the offensive line. Look, we ain't talked about the offensive line the same since he ain't been out there. We ain't talked about this whole offense. We ain't talked about David Njoku the same since he ain't been out there. Nick Chubb was really holding a lot up there, right, for a running back whose position does not matter.
All right, coming out of the bye, what do we need to see from the Browns to feel like they're still, you know, in the mix for the AFC North?
Look, the result for the 49ers game, to me, is secondary to the approach. If The result is that the Browns lose a closely fought game versus the 49ers, but you see, okay, they're getting the ball out quicker. Okay, they're doing stuff with Jed Wills to kind of take care of that problem. Oh, they're running more motion. Okay, they threw some RPO stuff in there. Like, if you lose, but you do those things, I feel so much better because now there's a foundation for all of this to get to where it needs to be. You're running inside zone, you get some of that gun run, but if they come into this game versus the 49ers and basically force feed the same stuff that wasn't working versus Baltimore, force feed the same stuff that wasn't working versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they just expect something to change because magically these players are going to play better, then I'm concerned. Even if you win a game like that because the defense has an incredible game, I'm concerned because structurally the problems don't seem like there's any systemic solution to them, right? It's just a win on the face of it. So that's what you want to see, the change of approach. Is there a little bit different of an approach from this team when it comes to who they rely on, who they don't, who they're going to trust, who they don't, and those kind of things. And I think that's going to be the most important thing you want to watch out this bye week. The result, getting a win versus San Francisco, would be great, but that's an undefeated football team. Like, they're really good. The Browns aren't at that level right now. They need to get to that level. So if they lose that game, I'm not going to be freaking out about it. But it's how they lose that game. It's the approach that they take to play that game. And that will tell me everything about where this offense is going to go.
Yeah,
and his defense too, right? Because this defense had some things that got taken advantage of by Baltimore as well.
Want to see the identity. What is the identity? It goes back to that. Can you see that there is an identity, and are you buying that identity can be sustainable? I'm with you. I agree with you 100% on that. Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Absolutely. Always great to be on here, man.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Always really good Browns coverage, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns general manager Andrew Berry talked about where this offense is during this bye week.
We're really looking forward to using this bye week to, really return to the level of consistency and the standard that Kevin has really set there on that side of the ball since he's been here in 2020. And no doubt with having Deshaun for a full season, losing Nick, losing Jack Conklin, that, it'll look different than we've been accustomed to seeing over the first 3 years. But, we have no doubt that not only will be able to meet, but kind of exceed the standard that we've seen the first 3 years that Kevin has been the head coach here.
With that, let's welcome in Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. Jackson, I'm hoping that it does get tweaked, changed, because quite honestly, you can't do what you were doing when you had Nick Chubb back there.
No, it's obvious. It's been pretty obvious since the injury happened that, running back by committee hasn't worked the way we were hoping it would be with Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, and to a slight extent Pierre Strong. But yeah, you obviously have to tweak some things when you lose the top running back in the league. You lose one of the best right tackles in Jack Conklin, although Dawan Jones has stepped in and performed pretty well for a fourth-round pick. But yeah, you definitely have to tweak things offensively. And I don't know about you, Dave, but it kind of made the sense that Barry was kind of telling Stefanski, you got to get this offense back on track, man, because you don't get it together, that seat's going to continue to get warmer and warmer for you. Now, obviously, he's not the final decision maker in that aspect, but you kind of thought that Barry was telling Stefanski, like, need to get this offense straightened out or things are going to have to change here.
Yeah, I think, you can't continue to do this, but what it is we don't have Chubb. We're not going to have Nick Chubb. So, but you do have a quarterback who's mobile. You do have running backs that have speed. So, I mean, again, you have to change it. If you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, it's insanity. It's a definition of insanity. And it's been, the offense hasn't been as good as it could be. This is also kind of interesting. So Browns offense against the Ravens with DTR. 7 of the first 10 plays, passes. One-score game for the first 19 minutes. Browns offense had 5 possessions in that span of time. And, it wasn't the quick passing attack, the rhythm passing attack. I expected the offense to be different, and it hasn't been.
Yeah, we all thought that too. With the whole quick passes, when you have mobile quarterbacks like Deshaun and DTR, they're going to hold on to the ball longer because they're going to try to extend plays with their legs. So you're not going to get the same quick pass, rhythm passing that you got with a Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, or Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, I was in the stadium on Sunday. You start off strong with a Jerome Ford run that gets called back for a penalty. I thought the running attack was formidable in the first quarter. You take away the disastrous trick play from Elijah Moore. The Browns had 7 carries for 31 yards in the first quarter. And then it just seemed like Baltimore decided, we're going to shut the run down. We're going to force DTR to throw, make him uncomfortable. And it worked for them, obviously. They tried to get the run game going throughout the rest of the game. It was 17 carries for 46 yards before Pierre Strong busted off that 40-yard run late in the game. So, they ran for 93 yards on 25 carries, which is, it looks decent with what you have at the running back position, but Baltimore made it a strong case. Like, we're going to stack the box. We're going to shut the running game down. We're going to make DTR uncomfortable and make mistakes. And that's ultimately what he did. So you hope the offense doesn't have another performance like that against San Francisco with their elite defense and hopefully Deshaun back out there. But yeah, Baltimore had a great game plan and they executed it perfectly on the Browns, unfortunately.
So, yeah, the one thing you can do with Deshaun Watson and mobile quarterbacks, run pass options. And those are quick passes. That's kind of what I expected. And, the quick slants where you're trying to see, does the guy have leverage? Do you have inside, easy throws. And there just haven't been any of that. The other thing that there has been on offense, and you tweeted this out, there's been a lot of turnovers. You see, in 2020, there were 16. That's for the entire season. 21, there was 22 of them. Last year, 21 of them. Already, through 4 games, there's 10 already. And it's been a group effort, if you will, turning the ball over on offense. Having said that, the fact that they're 2-2 will tell you just how good the defense has played.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if you take away DTR's 3 picks on Sunday, they're at 7, and they're still in the top 10 of the league in giveaways, which is not a stat you want to be in. Obviously, Stefanski's offense has been, ball security, protecting the ball, and Barry emphasized that in the press conference. They have to be better at ball security. And, it starts with the quarterbacks for sure. They have caused 7 of the 10 turnovers between Watson and DTR. But at the same time, the ball carriers, Jerome Ford fumbled that ball. I think it was the Cincinnati game? Njoku's had a fumble and Elijah Moore's had a fumble. Like, ball security should be the point of emphasis this week. And next week, going into practice, you're going up against a scary 49ers defense who are going to try to force turnovers. So ball security has to be a must, but it begins and ends with the quarterbacks. They have to, take care of the football as well. But it's a point of emphasis across the whole offensive side of the ball that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be corrected, because we are on pace for a lot of turnovers, and that's not going to lead to a lot of wins and a lot of touchdowns being scored.
So this is interesting. So this is NFL offensive 3-and-out rate in 2023. The Browns at 27%. That is the 5th best in the NFL. So they're getting first downs. The problem is they're not extending them the way you would want to, and it's been really uneven. The offense gave Pittsburgh 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, with all the bad stats on the offense, that one was the most encouraging, that they have not forced a lot of 3-and-outs or have caused a lot of 3-and-outs. So that one's encouraging. It means the offense is somewhat competent, but then we just talked about the turnovers. I think, 67% of the offensive drives have resulted in a punt or a turnover. So you've got to hope once Deshaun's back, they can get the offense back on track, because he had a great game against Tennessee. You have to hope the running game, they can adjust that at some point. But I think the biggest thing is you got to fix that offensive line. Like, Jedrick Wills is going backwards. We were hoping he was going to make a step forward. Wyatt Teller hasn't been the same player. Obviously, you have a 4th-round rookie at right tackle. Posick was in and out of the game on Sunday. So I think it all starts with getting that offensive line right. If they can get that right, then I think the rest of the offense can get back on track. And, of course, if Deshaun's shoulder injury isn't as bad as we think it is, if he can come back and duplicate what he did against Tennessee, then I think the offense can get back on track.
What do you think the offense needs to look like? Obviously, we've talked about this probably ad nauseum all week. The bye week is the time to tweak it and change it. What do you hope you see more of?
Well, they got to clean up the turnovers and the penalties, I think, are the 2 biggest things. Like, Amari Cooper had a holding penalty on that opening play when Jerome Ford had a nice run. Elijah Moore's had some holding penalties on some runs. Like, they got to clean those up. I think they need to simplify the script. When I looked at the numbers by quarter, the Browns haven't scored a touchdown in the first quarter. And I remember last year, we were probably one of the best first quarter teams, especially on the opening drives. We would get the ball down the field and score touchdowns. We haven't had a touchdown in the first quarter yet. I was listening to you and Quincy talking about more RPOs, more motions. We've seen a lot of empty sets on Sunday. I think that's something to get Deshaun more comfortable. Obviously, they decided to implement that with DTR, and we've seen how it went. But I think with a more veteran, established quarterback like Watson, I think he can get the offense going in the shotgun and with empty sets. But definitely more motions, more RPOs. Quit using Elijah Moore as your gadget guy. Just use him as a wide receiver. We know how talented he could be at that, but get that stuff going. And I think with the running game, Dave, I would like to see more Pierre Strong. Like, he's got the speed. I think he, deserves a shot, because it seems like Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt aren't getting anything done in the running game. Maybe give Pierre Strong some carries and see what he can do instead of just in garbage time, because that run at the end of the game was pretty good, albeit Baltimore was probably not giving much effort on defense, but he's got the speed element. Let's see what he can do with the ball in his hands.
Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll talk a little bit about the defense. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. This is impressive without question. The Browns defense is allowing an average of no yards before contact for the season. So, Jackson, put that in perspective. When the guy hits the line of scrimmage, he's getting hit. That's what that tells you.
Yeah, it's been crazy, like how good this defense has been to start off the year. Obviously, they give up 28 points to Baltimore, but the offense just could not get anything going, and they've set Baltimore up nice with great field position on every drive for the most part. But yeah, I mean, when the ball carrier, whoever it is, the Browns defense just swarms. Whether it's receivers, the defense or tight ends, running backs, whoever, like. The defense has just swarmed to the ball. I did, have some alarming thoughts up in the stands on Sunday when they were missing tackles, but it just seemed like Baltimore schemed up some things in the run game that maybe the Browns just weren't ready for, which, you would hope Jim Schwartz will correct those things for the next go around, because that was always the thing that Joe Woods could do, was stop Baltimore's offense. It was the only thing he did as defensive coordinator. But yeah, this defense has been lights out. With the exception of the Baltimore game. They're in for another tough test next week against San Francisco and all the weapons they have. But, yeah, this defense has just been amazing so far, and I can't wait to see how they progress as the season goes on.
Well, to give, further illustration of it, take a look at this yards allowed. So the Browns are number one, and they are a couple hundred yards less allowed than the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Lions, and the 49ers. So that's pretty elite company, and you see just how good that Browns defense has been.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like, how many? They only gave up 18 points going into the Baltimore game. So obviously their scoring defense went down just a bit. They're still top 5. But yeah, when you look at the yardage, they have just been suffocating offenses for the most part. They've been hitting every level. The defense has been playing great. People were worried about the linebackers, Walker, Taki, JOK. They've been playing phenomenally. You're getting Kanasic back here pretty soon, which will not only boost the linebacking core even more, but also the special teams, which I think has also been good for the most part. But yeah, just to see the numbers and the historical numbers that they're posting through 4 games has been mind-boggling, to say the least.
They did give up 2 longer drives, but also turnovers put the Ravens on the short field for those 28 points as well. Martin Emerson, a guy that hasn't gotten a lot of run because of Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, but take a look at what he has done. Lowest allowed completion percentage of any player in the NFL targeted at least 10 times, 26.7%. He continues to develop and get even better. Had a really good rookie year, and he's following it up with a strong second year as well.
Yeah, you definitely wondered if he was going to have the sophomore slump, and then you see Denzel reemerging. Newsome's been great as a nickel, but Emerson hasn't slowed up at all. He's had great game after great game. The secondary's been playing pretty good for the most part. Delpit's playing like an all-pro so far this year. The veteran presence of McLeod hasn't gone unnoticed. Thornhill has had his flashes, but yeah, Emerson's looking good. And, this gives the Browns a good problem to have, because you have Ward under a big contract. Newsome's up for a payday this coming off season. Then you got Martin Emerson, who has already shown what a value pick Andrew Berry made with him in the 3rd round, when a lot of people might not have expected a corner at that spot. Emerson's played phenomenally, and it gives the Browns a good problem to have with depth in that secondary.
All right, this from Pro Football Focus. The first quarter All-Pro team, and on the edge, they have Myles Garrett, led all players with 23 total pressures, including 6 sacks, 6 hits. Garrett boasts a 94.0 PFF pass rush grade, best of any player in football so far. And he has been that good, and it has been everything you thought he would be when you put better pieces around him.
Yeah, better pieces and better coaching. Like Miles has been top notch. You know, I worried about him on Sunday when he didn't get up right away when he rolled his ankle, but I mean, the fact that he still played just shows what a super athlete he is. He's off to a great start. I think he's going to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He has to be. Obviously, he's got Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt, Khalil Mack. If he has another monster game like he did last week against the Raiders, he'll be in the discussion too. But Miles has been phenomenal, and you know, he's just going to show everybody that he's the best edge in football, and he's finally got a great coach that knows how to utilize him. He's got a great supporting cast to rally around him, and you know, Miles might be knocking on the door for 20 sacks this year, and if he gets that, he might even get more. It wouldn't be crazy enough to think that he could break the sack record too.
Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jackson.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Jackson McCurry, make sure you check him out, the Dawgland podcast. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.